Hey guys, so this is going to be a quick overview of my starter for the league. It is a Burning Arrow Chieftain. There are versions of this build that you can do as a Trickster and an Elementalist as well. If you want to go look for those versions, I know they're out there. I know Mathel's got a Trickster version of this thing. I'm doing Chieftain because I think it's going to be fairly easy to gear and should be overall pretty strong and pretty easy to scale into late game. So I'm going to just go over the skills, the items, and the provisional tree as it is. There's going to be changes to it probably, depending on how I feel like actually doing the build. So Burning Arrow is our main skill, and of course it's going to be socketed into the new bow Zoph's Nurture, or the modified bow Zoph's Nurture. The bow should be fairly cheap to get, so don't freak out about that. It's pretty common. It's one of the easier drops to get from Zoph, so we should see those within like 2 or 3 days of league start, and they'll probably should go down. I know it's going to be a meta build. I know it's going to be a meta bow, so maybe not as cheap as it usually is, which is like 3C, but, you know, it should be fairly good. Burning Arrow is going to be our main skill. We're using Immult, elemental damage with attacks, deadly elements, burning damage, and swift affliction on it. 4 of these can be made into awakened skills. So if you look at my gear, you'll kind of freak out because it's all perfect gear. I was emulating the idea that if I was to use awakened skills, how much more damage I would get. So don't freak out. You don't need perfect gear for this at all. I have way too much DPS as it is. But that's the main setup for that, and then you'll get Ignite Prolith from the bow. We're running Anger, Malevolence. I have an Enlighten here, but if you don't have an Enlighten yet, you just pick up Sovereignty from the tree, and it'll do the same thing. You might drop Anger and run Herald of Ash. Personally, that's an option. I don't know if that's going to be what I'm doing yet, but I just wanted to put them both in there to see whichever would be the bigger aura. You're probably running one of these two. For Stormbrand, we have our Combustion there because I don't want to put it on Burning Arrow. If I were to put it on Burning Arrow, I would then maybe run an additional curse. So instead of Combustion, I would have Elemental Weakness and just grab the curse nodes from up here. So if I maybe drop Sovereignty, I can grab the curse nodes. So let's say I have an Enlighten. The curse on hit that is awakened can also do an additional curse. So if you have that, then you could drop Combustion, put it in your Burning Arrow, whatever. There's a lot of flexibility in the build, depending on how much money you have, how much you want to invest into it. I'm running Decoy Totem here because I have the skill for enemies near totems take 16% increased physical and fire damage. So I kind of wanted to run that and see if that works. If it doesn't, I can change that out. Or there's another version of this that I'll go into in a little bit. And then Summon Lightning Golem is going to be in the Malachi's Artifice because I don't want to run EE directly from the tree, even though it would be very good. It would also be kind of wonky in the sense that if I'm on a map, I have to hit with Burning Arrow multiple times while waiting for Stormbrand to take, and I just don't want to deal with all that. So I think Lightning Golem is going to do the trick there, where it's just going to hit enough times that I don't have to care about it. Maybe, once again, that's a bit provisional, but I think that'll be fine. I think that's Ziggy has used that before and worked fantastically for him on that. The last thing is if you're not using Comb's Hart, like I'm thinking of doing myself, if you don't use it and you still use the totem thing down here so that you take increased damage near your totems, ballistas are totems, so you could have a 6-link ballista burning arrow, which I just put range attack totem here, that'll be ballista, which would then give you another 2 stacks of the debuff using a secondary burning arrow and give you that increased damage from the totem being near it. So if you have both of those, your DPS would be higher, and it's probably not a bad idea. It's just a matter of if you don't run combs, which probably is the cheaper alternative, because you could just wear a large life armor, something like 140 life, bit of resistances on it, make the rest of your gear fairly simple to get, and then that would be much better for you. That also lets you change the trio around a lot if you have a lot more gear that wise, because right now I'm running Cleansing Water, which I don't really want to run, but in the beginning it's going to be far cheaper to run it and make it a whole lot easier to get gear, because all I need if I'm using Malachi's Artifice, which gives me the 100 or up to 100 lightning resistance because I have a golem in it, then also have Cleansing Water. I just basically have 200 resistances built into my tree. So all I need to find is Cold Resistance on gear, which just makes it so much cheaper to get. So that's kind of a provisional thing as well. These two are just the nodes that I don't know about at the moment. Otherwise, you're going to get Sun's Light and you're going to get Death's Fury. Those are super, super powerful. Ash is insane. Strength is going to give you more life, yada yada. I don't get Flames Advance because personally I don't like the fact that it's 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds for damage, and I don't need the conversion. If I was to get something else, I would probably drop like Cleansing Water for the Forest of Strength, and then if I really wanted to go heavy into it, I guess I could go into Storm's Embrace by dropping both of these, which probably would be better option actually, because you would have no worries about a totem. So if I'm going the Combs Hart route, I'm probably going to be switching over to Storm's Embrace, using endurance charges, getting maybe one more endurance charge off the tree. That way I do have that maximum at all times, and then I have 15% more damage because I would probably be proccing Immortal Call a lot. I'd lower my Immortal Call so it procs constantly. Easy way to make it so you can lose that non-stop. So otherwise, the tree, I'm going to be starting as a Marauder, going down here, grabbing all of this stuff over here besides the jewel sockets, because the tree is very dex light when you go up. But in the beginning, grab all this stuff, grab the bow nodes, grab that, you'll get a bunch of damage from that. I have the leech node, don't know if I need it. If I have enough MP regen, then I don't need the leech node. I don't have it for life leech because I have like 1,000 a second. I don't really think I'm gonna need to leech life on top of that. Then it's a bit of a travel. I wish there was a easier way to do this, like travel here. There just doesn't seem to be. I've tried to come up through here, through there, whatever. This is one of the ones that gives you the most HP, because a lot of these other nodes don't really do much for you, so you just go through there. It's a couple points wasted, but you get the jewel sockets, and they're pretty powerful to have jewel sockets on this build, so it's definitely worth getting those. Then you just come up through here, all the way through here, grab all this stuff. Elemental Overload's probably something you're going to grab fairly late on. It's not something you have to rush to. I would say that if you're grabbing at like 60, 65, 68, sometime when you're about to hit maps, it's a fairly good spot to grab it in, since you're not really needing that damage that early on, so don't like rush for it. I would much rather get the dex, be able to level up my skill gems, all that stuff. Fairly good there. And then just grab the rest of your life and grab Breath's Flame, and once you get to the very end, you should have pretty much 100% chance to ignite fairly early, because Burning Arrow already has it like built into it. So that's not going to be a problem for most of the build. You'll be just fine in terms of chance to ignite, but maybe you'll need a little bit more damage, so you could rush up here and grab it earlier. Like I said, things like additional curses, sovereignty, those are things you can drop off, drop on, whatever you need. If you have Enlighten, don't worry about sovereignty. If you want an additional curse, grab that. If you have curse on hit, don't worry about grabbing that. You could then drop it. A lot of this is kind of flexible in that sense, which is why I'm very happy with the build as it is currently. Why I'm starting with it, because I think it's going to be super flexible in the late game. Item wise, like I said, Zoph's Nurture, and like I said, these are all don't freak out, even though my Zoph's Nurture is a perfect 300 physical bow. That's just to simulate the Awakened Gems. If you want to go that route, you don't need the Awakened Gems, you don't need perfect gear. 1.26 is already way too much for like an Ignite build. Usually you'd be fine with like 600-700k just easily, because you're going to be attacking for a second and then running around for 3, but you're doing damage the entire time. So it's a lot more consistent than, let's say, melee, where you're doing 2 million DPS in 1 second and then you're having to avoid an attack where you're not doing damage for 3 seconds. So it'll feel just fine without having to have too much of anything to it. Signal Fire is just going to be good. It's added physical. Though you don't care about the conversion because you already get that, but the added physical is really good. The attack speed is good. You can get stacks on somebody much quicker this way. Probably best in slot, unless you can craft some insane quiver, which I don't think you can. For a helmet, I'm using Devoto's Devotion. This one is kind of because in the beginning I needed a whole lot more dex. I wanted the attack speed so that I can get more stacks on them, because you do want to attack fairly quickly to get those 5 stacks on an enemy. But you could probably do a fossil craft with like minus fire resist and get pretty similar results. something like that. I'm not really sure if this is going to be necessary. I know it's going to be expensive, which is one of the reasons I don't really want to recommend it. But it's up in the air for that. The 2 enchants you're going to probably be looking for is like burning damage for Burning Arrow, or just the burning extra as fire damage. Both of these will be good enchants, but once again, if you're going to run Devota's Devotion, don't think you're going to get these enchants, because they're going to be super sought after for anybody running this build. In which case, it would be better to go with like a normal Fossil Helmet crafted, because you could probably get these enchants, get that extra 5%, 6% DPS, and then also still have, you know, life and stuff like that, which you're not getting on Devotos. This is pretty much up in the air if I actually want to do this. I just wanted to put it here so I can kind of have an idea of what I can do and what I can't do. Combs Hart, of course, super powerful, fire damage, max life, and since this earlier version of the build, I'm not running 2 6 links, this is perfect for me. If I want to switch over the Siege Ballista version, where I have both my Burning Arrow and Siege Ballista, then I would probably drop Combs Hart, get like 140 life with percent life, 10% life, chest piece, and then be good to go with another 6 link. Somewhere else I can get resistances as well, which would let me then maybe switch over to the endurance charge version of the build, which would do more damage, you know, stuff like that. So there's plenty of options there. Combs Hart is definitely not necessary. I was just testing things with it. Gloves, you're going to need basically accuracy and max life on your gloves. You're going to need it on your amulet, and you're going to need it on rings. You're not going to have a lot of max life, or not max life, accuracy on anything from the tree, because you are a marauder. You are in a weird section of the tree, so you're going to need to get your hit chance up a little bit. So accuracy on places is fairly necessary. But other than that, like I said, you have so much resistances built in from the tree that in the beginning it should be fairly easy just to get max life and accuracy and not worry about many other stats. Wed is another thing that, of course, is going to be fairly good for you if you can get it on like your amulet or something like that, but you're already looking at kind of squeezing in a lot of points there, so maybe not potentially possible, excuse me, right at the beginning, but we'll see. Art boots, same as always, movement speed, resistances, max life. With the build being what it is, you're really not going to need cold resist on everything. You just need it on a couple pieces, and then 1 piece of lightning resist, and you'll cap out. So you can be pretty flexible on what you put that on. If you can get it on your gloves, then you don't need it on your boots. Stuff like that is going to be fairly easy. The ring we're using is Malachi's Artifice. We are socketing the lightning golem into it, so we do get that lightning resist out of it instead of the other 2. And as a result of that, it should be fairly easy just to cap out everything else. You don't need a perfect 100%, but the more you have on it, of course, the easier it is to not have to get resistances on anything else. So keep that in mind. Ring, more accuracy, max life, cold resist. Once again, get cold resist where you can, accuracy on the 3 pieces that you have left over. Deity and Dawn, you're gonna need it. It's 100% necessary. It's so much more damage that there's no reason not to use it. And it comes with resist, max life. It's actually really, really good as a belt, especially for Burning Arrow. Mine does say 43% faster because I modified it to count in for Burning Brutality, which it doesn't do from the tree for some reason. So you do have to modify your Deity and Dawn on Path to Building to be 43 instead of 35, so that's just why the number is a little bit bigger. Don't go looking for a 43 thinking those exist. Flask wise, probably an instant or a Blooded Curry, whichever is going to work for you. You're going to have a lot of regen, so it's not that big of a deal, and if you just regen really, really quickly, whatever. Cinder Swallow is definitely going to be the best in slot for your Onslaught Flask. It's going to be a little bit into the league before anybody can get one, but it's definitely going to be super, super powerful. You're going to want one, 100% hands down. It's best in slot. Otherwise, running a Sulfur Flask with immunity to bleeding. This also, my Sulfur Flask, as you can see, it says new Burning Arrow. I put in the calculation for the new Burning Arrow into the Sulfur Flask, so that's why it looks kind of weird. So this should be the DPS you have on the new Burning Arrow and not the old one. Minus, of course, Awakened Gems, and then just a Quicksilver. Jewel sockets wise, you're going to be running max life, fire damage multiplier, and fire damage over time. Something along those lines. There is a jewel in here that covers basically everything is to look for in a jewel. You can get fizz to bows, damage over time, fire damage, attack speed if you want to attack a bit quicker, fire damage multi. Any of those will work. I just kind of slotted these in as provisionals to get some idea of where it's going to be if you start spending some money on jewels. These will be expensive, 100%, they will be, but you can kind of squeeze around and see what you need, what you don't need, yada yada. If Watcher's Eyes are still available, which I don't know how easy they're going to be come by, then you're going to want either the Anger one for physical as extra fire or the Malevolence one for damage over time. Malevolence is stronger, but they're both probably going to be fairly expensive, so I wouldn't recommend them. That's why they're not in the build, like socketed in. And other than that, there isn't too much to say about the build. It's fairly simple, fairly standard in terms of what items you're going to get, and a lot of it's just kind of flexibility wise what you're going to do. This is right now at 96, which I don't really like. It's a bit too many points because I don't want to make a build that goes to 96, so you'll probably be dropping like these 2 jewel sockets here, which is just fine. You're at 94 then. If you want to push the build all the way to 96, something like that, then you can grab more. If you want to grab more life and some less jewel sockets, that's a possibility. It's really simple to do. Should be super powerful and should be fairly cheap if you don't do like combs and devotos. Drop those for normal base stuff. You'll be just fine. I think this is going to be a really easy starter. I think it's going to be really powerful, and then once you do have gear, drop these 2 and grab that. Even more powerful, even more damage. Why not? You know, it's going to be pretty good. But yeah, that's my starter build. If you have any questions, don't be, afraid to ask. I'm more than happy to answer anything about it. And yeah, hopefully this goes well. Should be quite a fun league. Good bosser. Always degen characters I feel are really, really good at bossing. And this should be no exception. Peace.